Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the legendary and, yeah, pretty controversial Charlie Francis training system. We're going to unpack the actual mechanics of ultimate speed. If you've ever wondered how the absolute limits of human performance are pushed, analyzed, and systematically broken down, well, you are definitely in the right place. We're looking closely at a training philosophy that literally redefined track and field. Let's kick things off with this really profound thought from the text. This fundamentally shifted how we understand elite human movement. Running occurs on the ground, sprinting occurs over it. Think about that for a second. As an athlete gets faster and stronger, their foot's contact time with the ground just gets shorter and shorter. Eventually, they almost lose the sensation of pushing off the ground entirely. It becomes all about the up and down action of the legs. So running is something you do on the earth, but sprinting, that's a totally different biomechanical event. You're practically flying over it. And the results of this philosophy? Absolutely undeniable. Just look at this iconic moment from Rome in 1987 as Ben Johnson crosses the finish line. The methods used to build this sheer level of explosive power, they weren't just abstract theories. They were actively shaping the fastest humans on the planet. The sheer volume of records broken by Francis-coached athletes is just staggering. It literally forced the entire track and field world to sit up and pay attention. We're talking 32 world records, 9 Olympic medals, and maybe the most astonishing stat of all, 89 personal bests from his athletes in a single year, 1982. 89. That is not a fluke, right? That is the result of a highly replicable, deeply integrated system. To distill this massive masterclass into its core elements, we're going to explore the 5 pillars of performance that define the system. 1. The architect of speed. 2. Coaching as an art form. 3. The weapon of recovery. 4. Developing young athletes. And 5. The mechanics of sprinting. All right, Pillar 1. The architect of speed, Charlie's evolution. You really can't understand the system without understanding the very specific failures that forced its creation. You see, Charlie Francis was actually a world-class sprinter himself. He ranked 5th in the world back in 1971. But he eventually realized his own athletic shortcomings were rooted in some pretty classic training errors. Basically, he was doing high-intensity speed work every single day, rather than just 2 or 3 times a week. Because of that, his central nervous system was just constantly fried. Add to that a totally insufficient amount of heavyweight training, and his recovery was basically non-existent. He couldn't consistently perform at his absolute maximum because, well, he was always carrying yesterday's fatigue. Now, we have to neutrally acknowledge the reality of the era. Performance-enhancing drugs were heavily prevalent at the time's highest-level competitions, but if we set that aside for a moment, the underlying mechanics of speed and central nervous system recovery we're talking about here apply universally across all sports. Whether an athlete is drug-free or not, these principles of training variety and proper biomechanics are just as crucial for a gymnast or a soccer player as they are for a sprinter. Moving right along to Pillar 2, coaching as an art form, beyond the science manual. Here's where we discover how Francis completely redefined the nature of coaching itself. He believed many coaches were acting a bit too much like mechanics, strictly following a science manual to service a machine. He called this the illusion of separateness. This is the false and honestly pretty dangerous belief that you can treat training factors as totally isolated events. You can't just schedule a strength day and totally ignore how it impacts tomorrow's technique day. Francis argued that you have to seamlessly thread together the scientific knowledge with the actual physical feelings of the athlete. When you observe strength, analyze technique, and monitor well-being all at the exact same time, that's when coaching ceases to be rigid science and truly becomes an art form. Which brings us perfectly to Pillar 3, the weapon of recovery, Gerard Mach's influence. Influenced heavily by Polish national coach Gerard Mach, Francis contrasted traditional recovery with a fully integrated approach. Usually we think of recovery as something you do strictly after a workout, right? Like taking an Epsom salt bath or getting a quick rub down, but the Francis and Mach method viewed recovery as a continuous, central training stimulus. It starts with finding harmony in the athlete's living environment, maintaining continuous communication, and hitting the absolute optimum timing for when a training stimulus is applied. So recovery isn't just an afterthought, it's actively happening at all times. To put into perspective just how effective this was, Mach's system of deep, extensive massage could incredibly bring an athlete back from a 3rd-degree hamstring pull in just 10 days. 10 days! Traditionally, you'd be looking at weeks or even months of lost training time for an injury like that. But by using highly specific massage techniques to track down deep tightness and pairing that with progressively longer acceleration distances, the athlete could actively rehabilitate while still moving. All right, on to Pillar 4, developing young athletes, building the foundation. So how does this intense philosophy scale down to the youth level? Well, first, Francis totally shattered some common youth development myths. The biggest one, that sprinters are born, not made. He argued that most sprinters are actually unmade by inappropriate early training volumes. Doing too much too soon essentially converts their fast-twitch muscle fibers into endurance fibers. He also completely rejected the idea that children shouldn't do power-related work. I mean, think about it. Kids naturally do power work all the time when they run, jump, and enthusiastically climb trees. Instead of avoiding it, he advocated for a highly structured patient progression. Step 1, you develop general strength and body awareness through play, which naturally keeps kids interested. Step 2, focus heavily on core body development, abdominals, medicine ball work, long before ever introducing heavy weights. And Step 3, which is crucial, when teaching technique, only correct one problem at a time. If you give a kid 3 things to fix, they leave with 2 problems on their mind and end up with paralysis by analysis. You fix one thing, you build their confidence, and then you move forward. Finally, Pillar 5, the mechanics of sprinting, relaxing under pressure. Let's see how this all builds into the actual execution of a world record race. Because once the physical strength is there, the psychology of speed totally takes over. There's this fascinating micro-story in the text. About 2 years before breaking his world records, Ben Johnson spent an entire day alone in his basement, just watching VCR tapes of his rival, Carl Lewis. And at the end of the day, Johnson had this massive realization. He concluded that Lewis was winning simply because he knew how to run completely relaxed, whereas Ben was just entirely too tense. And you can actually see this psychological shift physically manifest in his form here. On the left, you have early Ben Johnson. He's contorted, his face is tight, his shoulders are raised up by his ears, he's actively fighting the track. But on the right, during his record-breaking run, look at his face. He looks almost half asleep. Half-lidded eyes, completely relaxed facial muscles, loose open hands. He's stopped trying to force the acceleration. So the absolute crucial point here is patience. As another sprinter, Harry Jerome, pointed out, there's a lag time between when you increase your effort and when you actually begin to take off. During that split second, acceleration seems to take forever. And here's the catch. You must not keep turning up the effort, or you will tighten up. You must give it a chance to happen. Let it occur almost by itself. If you panic during that lag time and keep desperately trying to push harder, your muscles will tighten and you'll fail. You have to be confident enough to just wait for the speed to happen. Francis applied this exact same relaxed mentality to how he coached physical technique too. He famously left unique physical quirks completely alone if they weren't causing an injury. For instance, Ben Johnson's left knee famously flared out to the side when he ran. Olympic gold medalist Evelyn Ashford tilted heavily to the left. Francis looked at these quirks and basically said, so what? The rule was simple. Don't try to fix something that isn't broken. If an idiosyncrasy isn't negatively impacting performance or causing spasms, just leave it be. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to evaluate your own training style. Whether you're a coach, an athlete, or really just someone trying to get better at any skill. Are you correcting a true flaw, or are you simply tampering with a natural advantage? Because as this entire system teaches us, if it isn't broken, why are you trying to fix it? Let the athlete run relaxed, let the recovery happen naturally, and the speed will follow. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope it gave you a totally fresh perspective on the mechanics of ultimate performance.